Hey everybody, it's our first live study session. I am going to be sharing the post on the different pages, and let's see how this works. You get to deal with me being boring for a few minutes. Alrighty, righty. Once I know that this is up and running in all the right locations, I promise to be a little bit more interesting. It turns out that we've had a lot of interesting to discuss too. I need to share this. Great pauses in a group. Okay. And I apologize, I can't share the link until it's up and running. So you get to deal with us for just another minute. In a group. Here's an interesting thing that I get to share with you while I'm still in my own echo chamber. Did you know this is scary? Looking forward to writing the study session for tomorrow, because it turns out that energy is exchanged between anyone. And we can put it into all sorts of fancy categories. Like I was saying earlier in my study session today, there are many different ways to look at energy. There's scientific categories, and sometimes the way that they even divide up scientific categories is kind of, what's the word I want, ambiguous. They do their best to make each category unique. But when they're trying to separate solar energy from luminous energy from radiant energy, most of those categories overlap. When it comes to me talking about energy between human beings, there's a lot of category overlap there too. And that's kind of important to know, because when it comes right down to it, those different categories end up creating, like I was saying before, mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical effects on all of us. You can't leave any of them at the door. Now, when it comes to people that you don't know talking about you a million miles away, can you feel it? Yeah, a lot of us can. Like, I could look at so-and-so and say, dude, I totally knew you were talking about me when I wasn't around. Am I going to? No, that's weird. What if I'm wrong? Ugh. But when it comes to me going out into the world and doing this, I was alone. I felt alone. I lived in a very small town for a while there. Even when I moved here, I found a community, but it was a bunch of solitary practitioners working together. It was a very interesting experience trying to find a way to discuss my shared experience without sharing it. You know what I mean? The unique factor, the solitude that goes into that. And tell me, any of you don't understand, and I'll call you lies, no offense. Because there's a significant part of this whole practice that's just alone. And if you do it right, you really go in it unique, you really go in it to find your own path and not someone else's, of course there's going to be a certain amount of solitude involved. Hi Clifford, hi Teresa. I see that you joined. I was actually just talking about the sensation of energy and the realistic experience of being in a greater world as a new pagan, essentially. That's why when you chimed in, I was saying it feels alone, because if you're doing it right, it does. If you have a unique experience, if you let yourself have a unique experience, sorry, I'm adjusting, then there is a certain amount of solitude that goes into that. So when I'm coming to you and I'm talking about all of this, I get to go blushy, I get to get nervous, because I'm sharing something that is a large energy effect for a small investment, but I get to witness it unfold. Hello, Michelle. Welcome. So this is an interesting experience for me. This is my first live study session. This is far from my first study session. For those who have been following along online, some of this might be a complete recap for you. Some of it might be brand new, depending on which days you happen to read my sessions. I have had students on and off since, well, probably before I should have, but you know, I studied more than other people had. My first student I had when I was, I want to say, 19 or 20. Sorry, a bird just flew over my head, like not far. So you get to deal with me jumping. Yes, hi. Please comment, please ask questions. I was actually hoping to address questions, but I'm also going to introduce stuff first. And I had another question come up in conversation earlier this week, if I can remember it. Give me a minute. So when I first started working with students, it was 20 some years ago now, which is weird because it doesn't feel like that. I'm still 16. Don't tell anyone. Like, no one needs to know. Maybe I'm 20 something. I don't feel like I'm 37. And I've been doing this since I was 18. I've been having students since I was 19, so I'm rounding a little bit. But about 20 years now. I've done a whole lot of falling downstairs, kind of learning, which does teach you very well. It just doesn't feel good. I'm sure a lot of y'all can understand and identify with that too. Thank you, Teresa. But when I would meet with my students, I would sit down with them a lot the way I'm sitting down with you, except you hear the dogs and the kids in the background, probably, at least a little. I live in the real world. I would discuss magic, but I think that magic is a very important thing to place into time and space, unless we just want it to live in our altars. And I think that magic can infuse every moment. It can help you find a job. It can help you keep a job. It can help you keep your boss from being a punk. It can help you make friends with people you don't know yet. And I don't mean just like this. Hi, I love you guys. Hi, Jennifer. Welcome. See, Teresa. Yeah, the kids. Always the kids. I love my kids. I have 3. I have a 13-year-old, I have an 8-year-old, and a 6-year-old. Unless you meet them in person, I really won't talk about them much on social media, because I think that is, I don't know, I feel like that's a thing that parents should do more. They should let their kids kind of hit that point on their own. So you guys just get to have like really brief interactions with them, unless you happen to be like Clifford and teach a class with them in it. You can! Welcome, Jennifer! So when I have my study sessions along these lines, normally what I do is I sit down, I say hello, I offer a beer, I offer dinner. Of course, dinner just got done. For Logan, who's on here, who has been working with me, as always, dinner got done right as the study session started. Hilarious. I always end up feeding him every time. And I end up sitting down, catching up on stuff, and then getting into what's been going on in my life and what's been going on in their life with readings. Good afternoon, Adam Reed. So, how are you guys? Is there anything new in your world? I mean, legitimately, I would love to have a conversation. Oh, beer is dinner at my place sometimes too, Logan. This is why we're so good friends. I don't have any beer right now, though. I only have wine. I might have to send my husband to get me some. It's in the fridge. I'm just not going to the fridge right now. Oh, no, angry face. I'm getting all the faces. How am I getting all the faces right now? I'm so confused. I'm sorry, my screen just showed a whole bunch of smiley faces and flowers and things floating up my screen, including one like angry face. Because that's look so over the last week, what have we been talking about? The study sessions that I've been typing up. Oh, Jennifer, I'll drink a beer for you if I can just figure out how to get one to appear here. Anyway, I'm gonna think really hard. That's a magic spell I haven't perfected yet. I need to do the instant summoning of beer. I think that would make me a lot of money, actually. So yes, I will not have a conversation about magic without laughter and joking, just so it's said. So this last week, I've been doing a lot of my introductory work when it comes to... Oh, Teresa. She writes, there is a great deal of anger I am facing and taking in from so many women and mothers. They're just downright angry about the world. It's been rough. Yeah. Yeah. It's really weird having this conversation with you while looking at me. Can I say that once? No. There's so much anger in this world right now. I started off by discussing the energy of this moment, the energy of this place and time. And I guess that's a really good place to stay. That's where I'm planning on going with my study sessions over the next few days, too. Oh, and if anybody comments on the other links, I will not be able to see your live comments unless you come to the Guild of the Gods. I'm sorry. That's the one downside of me posting in multiple locations. But if you can comment on the live session, I'll be able to respond to you. No, it is unguided, and it is brewing. There's a lot of us out there who are so busy feeling alone, actually like what I was saying before, that we're not working together as a group. And we're not taught that we're allowed to be different, unique, interesting, and around other people who are interesting, unique. Not that we can't, obviously. It's working. There's a community of us out there, and we're reaching out to each other, even if we're not neighbors, although I'm lucky enough to have a neighbor who matches me. There's a lot of us out there who are stuck feeling alone and without solution. And forgive me, but the current political climate doesn't help at all. And like, can I get an amen? Holy cow. Hi, Jerry. Welcome. I know. Teresa wrote, there's still a territorial vibe, something coming to change that, not sure what. Okay. I'm going to go on a little ramble about energy because it's a direct response to you and it makes sense. I've been noticing that there is an overarching energy of the current country, that under Obama there was what I felt to be a state of elation. And a lot of other people didn't seem to have that. Thank you, Jerry. A lot of people didn't seem to. Hi, Ashish. Lucky you, isolated. Are you in the trenches, Adam? Is that what's going on? A lot of us are feeling isolated by this because there's this weird sense of antipathy that we're confronted with fairly constantly. And it's not simply political, and it's not simply social. What's really funny, though, is if you actually check the polls, and I do, and I did for a long time, the polls show us that we are not alone. The people who support, and let me be very clear, the people who support each other and want to support each other, the people who support being able to reach out to their fellow man and help them more than hurt them, who are looking out for our community and not just number one, the people who don't want to emulate millionaires assuming that they can be them because they agree, the people who care about the unity and the health of this planet, the unity and health of our communities, even if we don't agree, the fact that we can be coherent together. Remember how I said I'm going to talk about energy, because there is an interaction, a push and pull between a lot of us, where we end up, even if we don't speak, even if we don't interact, we generate energy. Now, frustration creates this kind of magnetic repulsion. And if you're an empath, it's really exciting because every time you are, oh, Adam, I am lucky I have a close neighbor who is the same. I also have a handful of neighbors who aren't. But I have one who's really wonderful, and so I focus on that. Because, you know, you can just choose what you focus on and move on. So when you look at the sensation of frustration, when you look at the sensation of isolation, actually keeps you from interacting with others in the same way. Now, let me say it like this. When somebody walks into the room and they're really, really excited, when you are feeling receptive, you can often feel buoyed up just from them walking into the room. When you walk into a place that's full of flowers and life, you can feel lifted just by proximity. If you go to a place that's truly alive, a mountain that still has life inside of it, and y'all know what I'm talking about, you can feel that fill you. Here's the thing. You want that fuel. You want to be filled by that energy. We all do. We try to pretend we don't. We love the hugs that fill us. Even the people who don't necessarily like to be touched like to have that reward and interaction. I have to silence a group. I'm going to apologize for this. I don't mean to create kabinks. Okay, here we go. So, sorry. When humans are growing up, they're taught, don't cry. They're taught, don't need. Don't need. Be independent. It didn't used to be necessarily. There was a lot more, depending on the community that you were in, the actual culture that you were in, there was often a lot of push and pull. There was a lot of give and take. My incredible husband, love him, was just telling me how we're kind of, my generation, maybe some of y'all who are a little older than me, are kind of the first generation where our parents didn't teach us. Really think about that. The first generation where education was handled entirely outside of the home. There's a power in that. And it's not necessarily a good one, but there's a very decisive power in that. If you think of us now with that in mind, the fact that we were put out into the universe, someone else was expected to learn us with no background, to figure us out for 1 year only, not even a whole year, to teach us well, and for us to be able to learn and then to move on, it's not surprised that we run into ignorance. And it also, I mean, the goal was to find worthy teachers so that they could supplement the parents who don't have that information. That was the goal. We all know it didn't completely work. We've all seen the schools. We've all seen that teacher or that school or that district. There is a whole lot of this world. Sorry, Teresa, I'm responding to, wrote, ignorance breeds hate and fear and ignorance of how the world works. And the world has been literally untaught. Ignorant people are unpredictable, which is true. We nearly need to start with grade school. This is science. This is math. It's true. Now we have to teach them that they can also understand and control their emotions. They are tools and victims. Blech. Oh yeah, Logan, or that state. It's true. Indiana. We're not awful, but we're not the best. So when we are talking through, as a priestess, I don't skip anything. I don't pull any punches myself. If you guys read my study session today, I covered the laws of entropy. I covered the laws of how energy works. I brought in science as well as metaphysics and magic, and I only dabbled. Each of my study sessions is designed to basically be body brain length. It's a page or two. So please stick with me. I'm going to go into more detail on that. No, Jennifer. Oh, it's my pleasure. Have a great night. I'm so glad you could pop in. And I'm sorry for the wobbling. This is balanced on my lap. You're looking at my willow trees in the background, by the way. Willow trees. And my honeysuckle. But the problem that we have with a lot of schooling is that, yes, there are blind spots. Yes, there are a lot of people who don't know. And see, this is the hard part. This is what you were talking about to a large extent, Teresa. They don't know how to predict that because they're only making so many hours a week at so much income that they can't just decide, they can't just budget that it will not total enough to pay for their gas and any car repairs ever and their groceries while paying for their rent. That they have to work better than 20 hours a week at better than $10 an hour, or else they cannot do all of those things. And it's not that the state's getting them down, although it is. It's not that the boss is getting them down, although they are. It's that ignorance that you're speaking of, Teresa, because people don't learn how to put everything into one solid subject. The problem that I run into when I discuss politics just blindly with people online is I have studied the international historical cultures of anthropology. I'm going to sound really overly smart for a minute there, but the study of religion through time is not a study of religion, it's a study of people. Religion is done by people. Daily practice, actually this is something that was really interesting. I did some extra research this spring because I ran into one of those posts about Ishtar, where Easter was hijacked from Ishtar forever ago, and that Ostara was the name of Ishtar's practice that had been handed down through generations, that was associated with the goddess of Ostara, who may or may not. Keep in mind, we're talking about thousands of years apart. Churches are not always governments, but I totally don't disagree with you, Teresa. So when you're following all of this back through history, hi, Amanda. Mwah, happy birthday. It's her birthday. Everyone should say happy birthday to Amanda. When you're following the specific practice of Ostara through time, and this is a really solid example of what we're talking about, Teresa. It turns out Ishtar dated back about 6,000 to 8,000 years ago from now. So I'm not talking 6,000 BCE. I'm talking about 4,000 to 6,000 BCE, I think. No, it's a lot of numbers to just throw out there. When it comes to the different posts, the different groups throughout time, Ostara showed up throughout Europe that we know of. I'm going to qualify the heck out of that we know of, about 1,500 years ago, maybe even as recently as 500 years ago. Now, if you're paying attention to that gap, that's huge. There are regions of this world that are now underwater that were once exposed and well lived in that 4,000 to 6,000, maybe more year gap. Right, Teresa? I thought we'd match. Because we've talked online enough times. So when it comes to looking at Ostara as it was in medieval Europe specifically, when we do have records, there's a couple things that need to be said. One, it goes without saying. Who's heard that phrase? Everyone. It goes without saying is a phrase that specifically discusses you don't need to talk about it. Everybody knows. Now, springtime is a time of fertility. Nowadays, we're used to that meaning, let's rut like bunnies. What do you think the kids did every spring? They did not do that. And the parents in charge of the kids did not do that. And the adults wandering through town did not do that. Although some of them did. But they waited until after dark when they were drunk. We've all heard those stories. If you read some medieval literature, you'll run into those. They are hilarious. Most of them. Some of them involve a lot of very unhappy women. Yeah. That was a thing for a while. And yeah, by the way, don't ever just do the clean, acceptable research in the Middle Ages. You'll miss half the modern information of the time. They were dirty MFs at that time. They were like cracking dirty jokes and everything. Yes, Europe through all times was a mess. Wars, clan wars, civil wars. Everyone was a slave at some point of someone else, wiped out, lost their cultures. However, it wasn't all bad all the time. It was a question of which region. They kind of passed it back and forth. You know, like rotten egg in that Who's a Rotten Egg game or the hot potato. They'd pass it around. People would take turns getting hurt and beat up and, well, screwed over. So for a long time, the stuff that went without saying wasn't that people were a victim. It wasn't that someone was enslaved. It wasn't that they made someone the problem. I actually did a fairly extensive amount of research on the 1500s, specifically the turn of the 16th century in Europe. And that happened to be right when the witch hunts were starting. That was right when the Reformation was going on. There's a lot of information. Yes, that's true. It does make jumps in historical information, as Teresa pointed out. And that's one of the biggest problems is during the Reformation, huge amounts of information were destroyed. So not only does all of the discomfort make jumps through historical information, we also lost a lot of information. And what's really funny is how much of the happy we lost records of, because they're like, oh, we couldn't be happy doing that. That's not allowed. But before that, it just went without saying. Now here's what went without saying. What's the word for the Easter season? In a lot of these regions, it was Ostara. So when people talked about when Jesus died, educating the new folks, you didn't use some foreign word talking about it. You could say Pesach, which is the Hebrew word for Passover. The word Passover didn't turn up until almost 1600, I want to say. Instead, they referred to Ostara as the word for that season, that festival of fertility. So their celebrations of eggs, their celebrations of bunnies, their fun times around the bonfire, they just knew based off of the words that they were given that Jesus happened to be nailed to a cross and resurrected at the same time that bunnies and eggs and things, fertility was being celebrated. And in its own way, that miracle correlation makes so much sense for that time of year. So people who, it goes without saying that that's what springtime is, ended up saying, and it goes without saying that Jesus died and was resurrected around this time. Now we look at Christians saying, you hijacked our holidays. No, actually, the really nice Mama so-and-so who was really functionally pagan ended up choosing to go to church because it turns out that churches provided a lot of community and community support at a time when it was very needed. It turns out that they were put in a position not of being forced into the religion at first, but being wooed into the religion. And then it became overlapped with their it goes without saying lifestyle. It doesn't make a lot of sense until you research some of the other regions that are currently being indoctrinated. Now, I highly value tribal practices. I highly value local practices. And I also value the sense of a local, unique voice that you have regardless of how people change their practice throughout time. So basically what I'm trying to say is if you, how do I say this right? If you ignore this voice because you disagree with it, but value that voice because you do agree with it, but it's the same people saying their way. Midwives, yeah, that does cover a lot. They were really hounded out, and that was actually, I wish to a certain extent it would be so much easier if midwives were hounded out by people. They were hounded out by money. And a lot like right now, as I was starting to say before, most of us support each other, support our government in a lot of respects. We support our, not this current government, but the ability for the government to work with the people. That came out really funny for a second. I apologize. A lot of us support nature and the interaction of culture to support the individual members of our culture in a positive way. We support taxes as a means to take care of us when we need it, so that when we don't need it, we can pay into it. There's a lot of factors involved in this whole conversation, and I'm not going to pretend that we all agree perfectly, because we don't. We aren't supposed to. That's part of the point. But what I am going to say is that there is a very specific cross-section of our modern community that has wealth, that has power, that is trying to disenfranchise people, and if people don't stop them, it could be like the midwives of the Middle Ages, where instead of giving people medicine and actual care and actual treatment, you slap leeches on them, put them in a dark room with lots of heat, and then expect them to push out a baby while laying on their back. Worst position ever, by the way, for birthing a baby. Took a lot of research to realize that. So a lot of Western Europe became really colored by that, and even now, there's a lot of women that are struggling with their own self-identity in a world where they feel unwelcome. But you know one worse than the birth position? I'm not sure what one worse. Okay, I've got two responses over here I'm not totally understanding. Logan says, no, it didn't. And Teresa said, I know one worse. And I would like to have some clarification of what those mean. Pretty please, with sugar on top. In the meantime, where was I? So, apparatus for facilitating the birth of a child by centrifugal force. Oh, that's horrendous. Oh, no, put that away. Just that men listening to women was rare. Oh, it didn't take a lot of research. Just that men listening to women was rare. Yeah, no. And when men started telling women how to birth babies, I'm really surprised that women didn't kick them out of the room. Like, why did they listen to that? That's what I'm really confused about. Don't get me wrong, men have a pretty tight right hook, but just because you can't, and actually I'm going to say this fairly clearly, just because you can't loudly disagree with them doesn't mean you have to do what they say. And I'm really shocked by how much of history falls under that heading. In ancient Greece, this is an interesting thing that I did not know. I'm not looking at my numbers right now, so I'm going to screw this all up, and I apologize. If you've ever done a study of art history, there was a very, very old period in ancient Greece where they did the geometric phase of sculptures, pottery design. The world was scary. It was during a time of anomalous weather, and that is easy to create the belief that God is angry. That's fair. And a lot of people are willing to jump on the bandwagon and abandon all sense. Ye who enter here. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to continue with this analogy because it's a good one. Oh, one of my trees nearby is blooming right now, and I just got this wonderful aroma. I wish I could share this with you. Nature is so fabulous. In ancient Greece, long time ago, there was pottery that followed the geometric phase, and it included images of a goddess. It did not really show God very often, and it didn't show a lot of people either. It was fairly widely traded, although there's not evidence of there being a lot of remaining samples of it. Does that make sense? Keep in mind, we're talking about like 8,000 years ago. This was not quite the same time as Ishtar, but I think, well, maybe it was around the same time. It's really hard to compare the different timelines because completely different people did research depending on the region of the world, and they don't compare books. I would love to do a really good comparison that shows a greater timeline throughout all of history, simultaneous. No, it was only 900 BCE. So I was off. It wasn't thousands, it was hundreds. Thank you. Like I said, I was not pulling up my numbers right now. At this era in ancient Greece, there was a very solid community. There were many city-states that we've got evidence of. There was a lot of pottery and wide trading. Yeah, only 3,000 years ago. By the way, when I study ancient history, I study like 165,000 years ago, stuff like that. So only 3,000 years ago. That's nothing. Spit in the bucket. Sorry. I want to know the origins of mankind, 2 million years ago, stuff like that. So when there was this culture that existed with city-states, with really cool communities of people, with I keep seeing angry faces pop up. It makes me sad. I want to hug people. When these different communities existed, they interacted fairly well. There was evidence of a wide range of trade, and there was a really strong health among the people, really high level of health among the people, and a very strong egalitarian push. You can tell because of where the wealth turned up, how the artisanship, the training appeared to be circulated, what kind of lifestyles were apparent in the Beth, altar spaces and the offerings that people would leave for the gods. There was a lot of, as much as you can from 3,000 years ago, there was a lot of evidence of egalitarian, healthy, female-based, possibly matriarchal community. And there were these dark ages where, and this is a theme that comes up a lot in my research, the white-skinned, pale-skinned Aryan, insert word here, depends on the region, which one they used, pale-skinned people came out of the mountains, in this case down from the north, invaded the region, destroyed all of the city-states, essentially burned all of the books, took over the region, killed all the men, married all of the women, and suddenly Hera ends up married to womanizing Zeus. And suddenly all of the different altar spaces are now divided up between men and women. And somehow the city-states just pop back. I want to say 500 years later? Logan's doing my research for me. Thank you. So I want to say it's 400 years. By 500 years later, it's kind of back to this weird new normal where there's slavery, where instead of idealizing the pastoral life, it's idealizing the wealth that the pastoral life can bring. And I think we can all identify with the gap there. And the reason all of this comes up is because at that point, men in Greece began to be raised with a very chauvinistic mentality. But the men were not raising the children. They were not at all. They were out there working the fields, working in trades, running the government, etc. So when all of these different regions of Greece are all existing simultaneously with separate city-state governments, and they all used to be matriarchal, they all used to be more egalitarian, all of a sudden the teachers of the next generation start teaching their children to be chauvinist, self-centered pricks. Has anybody else been really confused by this? Like, I always, whenever I see, embarrassing people on TV who I'm not naming names, I really wonder, what was his mama thinking? Because I'm sorry, if I saw my son behaving that way towards a woman, I'd set him straight. In a greater historical context, in the Middle Ages, I understand why governmentally, why financially, a lot of midwives were hounded out. I understand why self-centered people who wanted to promote the church because the church promoted them wanted to disenfranchise people that they disagreed with. It's not nice, but I understand it. That's where most of the witch hunts came from. Not sadly because of witches, but because money. And heaven forbid you're a woman who had money. Whoo, that needed to stop right there. It's against the rules. Jesus would never promote that. Mary Magdalene. So when we are talking about everything going through history into this modern day, Teresa, you talk about angry women, you talk about frustrated women, you talk about how many families are in a bad way right now. I'm not disagreeing with you. It is reality. The same way this chair is real. But why? Why aren't we building each other up? Why aren't we helping each other get the jobs we need? Why are we somehow acquiescing to our sons acting this way? And hopefully not our sons, but in a greater sense. Why is it that we have allowed a generation to come about? Now, under Obama, I didn't feel the same way. Not everybody liked Obama for great reasons. I'm not even getting into that, like I said before. But there was a community reaching out to community vibe that I think we could all pick up on. And lately, that vibe has shifted. That energy has shifted into something self-centered, into something terrified. And the first thing that terror does is create a self-serving response. Women give birth, Teresa responded, and during those times, the ratio of man to women was not always equal because of death. This is why a man was chosen to rule. They did not die as often while making prodigy. I think the word's progeny, but I'm with you. And now it's written in our DNA to be that way, unless your family is matriarchal. Actually, having done a lot of worldwide studies, DNA doesn't factor into it quite as much as you might expect. It's really, in a large part, cultural, psychological acceptability. In fact, a child who is from a matriarchal community can be raised in the U.S. and completely change depending on which neighborhood he's raised in. Whereas if we took our kids and moved out to, I want to say, it's not Bali, it's one of the islands near Bali, where they have matriarchal matrilineal societies, I'm sure that they would look at people and say, why is a man in charge? It's expectations. And to a certain extent, I hate to say this, but it's internal expectations. I cringe if I'm going to stand in front of a room of people I don't know. I mean, I've got the guild here. I love you guys. I love this community that I'm with. I can talk with you. I feel like I'm speaking to my kin. It suggested our memories are stored there, our ancestral memories, which is amazing. It fits so well with so much. Nature versus nurture. Yeah, it's a big question. But even with me, I am a strong woman who likes to, I've got my pinup girl look. Yeah. I own my beauty. I own my power. I own my voice. I love to sing. I love to do art. And I also am willing to work in engineering, which is not typically a women's field, but I was trained in it, and it's a good field, and I am able to stand with the boys and play along in their sandbox and not get kicked out. Epigenetics doesn't store memories, only environmental pressures. Where's the Akashic Records factor into that for you guys? Because we're overlapping between, and this is where that energy discussion comes in. You remember my post today? Maybe you guys read it. There's science. There's spirituality in our research. There's evidence of an electromagnetic field around the earth that functions a lot like neurons. There's areas where literal memories will play out in front of you. Epigenetics doesn't necessarily store memories, but we're really splitting the hair pretty finely. That's like saying, as I said at the very beginning before anyone was on, the difference between solar energy versus luminous energy versus thermal energy versus radiant energy. Science struggles with that. They can tell you the exact wavelengths, but they can also tell you where they're the same and not. It's all in how we read our pressures. A dog paints a picture with smell. People paint memories with emotions, highly charged. And what's really funny is working with students, one of the biggest factors, sorry, bugs, not you guys. One of the biggest factors that I run into with students is that not everybody reads the same. Some people feel colors. Some people feel sounds. Some people can sense the past in the world around them, but they can't isolate themselves from it, and they can't control it to the extent that they don't even know they're reading. They don't know that they're doing anything metaphysical, because it is all in how we read our pressures. And if you're constantly sensing the temperature around you, you're not going to say, oh, that's metaphysical. Obviously, because the temperatures around you are something passive that you interact with constantly. Wait, that sounds a lot like an empath in the modern world, where you just think you're crazy because when you walk into a room, your mood changes. Oh, wait, no, you're just an empath. So when we're picking up on these memories, a lot of these things come in like, oh, okay, interesting story. I'm driving to go see my friend. I was 17. It is not fun being an awakening pagan in an evangelical Christian household at 17. I say that once. It was easier in the Methodist household with my dad, but it's still not easy. When I was driving out to my friend's house, I passed a girl who was very distressed. And trust me, I'm on topic. I know it sounds like I'm wondering. I passed this girl that was distressed. I didn't know it at the time. She was just walking down the street. It was a really hot summer day. My car the air conditioning was struggling to catch up. And I smoked then, so I've got the windows cracked, and I'm letting in the hot air while blasting the air conditioning, and I'm uncomfortable and not distracted from the road, but very distracted by the road. When suddenly, I just feel heavy. I am padded. I am uncomfortable. The heat is pounding on me, and because of this layer of insulation on my body, I cannot get rid of it. I cannot shed it. This sensation of this moment is so unpleasant to me, and I know I'm hideous, and I know I hate the way I look. Remember what I just said a minute ago? Honey, I love the way I look. No offense, no weird. I have not had a problem with self-image for the most part. I have things I want to tweak and adjust, but I was made this way on purpose. I embrace that. No, I was overwhelmed. I was getting all of this feedback. So I keep driving, and my friend was telling me a story at the time, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I missed everything you just said, and I can't even explain why, because I don't have words for that now, besides just kind of rambling. Even then, I was just stumbling. So I go to my friend's house secretly praying that he's home. He's not. So we go to leave, and we go to drive back. This, I'm going to say 14 or 15-year-old girl who is a little too tall. We're all familiar with that cross section. If, heaven forbid, you stand out. God help you if you are a pretty girl, because too pretty is also your doom, because everyone harbors a secret hatred for the prettiest girl in the room. I'm quoting Anita Franco, Pretty Girl, but there's God help you if you are an ugly girl. No, I'm forgetting all of the lyrics. I'm sorry. If anybody can look up that verse, it is a beautiful verse, and I'm not dealing with it right this second. So we go to drive back past this girl who is a little bit different, a little bit tall, a little bit thick, a little bit just not flamboyant, not fabulous at all. And as we start to drive up near her, and I didn't even notice her the first time. I did this double take after the fact. When I go to pass her again, it's like my vision all but went away. I lost all sense of where I was, when I was, not safe while driving. And my friend's still trying to finish her story as I suddenly feel heavy, awful, terrible. I just want to remove the layers of me so I can be the real me underneath. And I don't care if I'm bleeding so long as I just have less. I feel like I could fly if I just took all of this off. I drive past her, get to a stop sign, and scream and hit my steering wheel and just fucking lost it for a minute because I really needed to. And my friend said, what's wrong with you? And I gave her this verbal description, and she interrupts me, obviously distressed by the description I'm giving, and says, I know, I understand, I used to be fat, I get it. Like, I'm trying to drive this home for her. I said, but I didn't. When we interact with the culture of the people around us, the memories of the people around us, the sensations of being near them, sometimes we don't get to ask permission. Sometimes we don't get an explanation. We don't get anything besides really loud feedback. And our job is to find a way to react to it in a positive, reasonable, not like a crazy person kind of way, and just kind of pray that no one catches on who we don't want to. I mean, the last thing I want to do is go stand up on stage in front of a whole bunch of people act all whacked out and have everybody looking at me like I'm out of my mind. Nobody wants that. Nobody likes that. So when we're talking about whether we have DNA memories of these different sensations throughout history, when we ask about whether we have Akashic memories, when we talk about the different energies of the world around us, well, we can and we should differentiate between the different concepts, nature versus nurture, DNA, epigenetics, all of these things to a certain extent. It's all experience, man. And we've got to make sense of it. And more importantly, we need to find a way to climb on our surfboards and ride that wave, or else we're going to be tossed in the surf. And I don't want to find the coral underneath. That stuff can hurt you. A lot of what we're going through right now as a community, as a culture, as a country, as a world, is we're trying to figure out how to take credit for the wave that we've created, how to ride it in a positive way, how to support each other in a positive way, and to actually make a positive difference. Everyone agrees on how to do that, right? When we look around the world, though, we started off by talking about energy. Keep coming back to it. I think y'all remember when I talked about climbing to the top of a mountain, how that can make you feel elated. Walking into a room and seeing someone that you care about smile at you, just fill you up. Walking into a beautiful garden, you feel elated. Yeah, leap off the cliff and embrace you're kind of crazy and love it, right? Right? But in this case, what I'm saying is we need to start building each other up better. So that we aren't going home and hiding at the end of the day, crying into our pillows, terrified that the world's going to get us. We need to stop letting ourselves feel so alone. If we stop letting ourselves be so taken down by the world, we're not going to be starting from, below E every day when we're trying to set our goals. We can start working together to work within community, to work. And in this case, what I mean is not that we have to agree. This is something that we've been taught, but it's not true. You don't have to agree to be a community. You don't even have to get along to be a community. You have to be nice. You have to build each other up and make each other's lives better. It's kind of that if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, but it's more than that. Say something nice. Find a compliment. Find a way to reach out to each other. And if that means I know someone who has kids who has a hard time getting groceries to them, so I'm going to show up with fruit because I can, and I will. Is it really the end of the world for me to get $5 of fruit? Yeah, we need to speak out to each other. Teresa says, one of the things I work with is that those who need will come to us. That means if we need to say something, no matter what it is about. That's true, but that's really hard. I started off this whole thing by saying how scary this is for me to be here talking with all of you, not because it's not, Eclectic's Corner, Kaleidoscope of Magical Perceptions, Guild of the Gods, Off-Grid Pagans. By the way, all my love to all of you guys. Mwah, you make my life so much better. Indiana, Pagans and Wiccans of Indiana, Cauldron, Gypsy Witch Tribe. I don't know if you guys, I didn't quite send you a link. I'm sorry. Hello to all of you guys. You really do make my life richer by being a part of it with me, because I can be a voice all day in a closed house. No one's going to hear me. And the thing is, I'm not saying anything that's special. I mean, yeah, I've done a lot of research. Okay. I'm stating the obvious for the most part. I'm saying the same things that we're all saying. That's a big part of what I do as a priestess, by the way, is give people permission to hear these normal things, to hear these standard things, to recognize that folks are not alone. But we need to be willing to talk to each other more, to just reach out, to just smile, to bring each other joy and hope by pleasantly, kindly, simply agreeing to agree where we can. That doesn't mean that we should settle for ignorance, ever. But I got to help out in my kids' preschool for a few years. It was so cool. I'm sorry, I'm going to totally nerd out. It was so cool working in a Montessori preschool. If you ever get a chance, I highly recommend it. It is a different approach because it turns out kids are little people, and little people are really cool. They don't have any of the bullshit built in. They just don't. They'll look at you and say, Miss Beth, your shirt's kind of low cut, and I think you might have some spinach in your teeth, but I really like you. I don't even care that they think my shirt's low cut and I have spinach in my teeth. They really like me. But when it came to talking with kids, when it came to talking with these children, it was, oh, you really think it's okay? Oh, thank you. I'm saying, Teresa said, you're saying what so many are afraid of saying. We have generations being taught nature is wrong and wrongs us. I know. However, it can no longer be denied that this idea is not just wrong, but dangerous. Dangerously wrong. It is dangerous. You are correct. When you go outside and you kill your bugs, you break your garden. I love you guys who are scared of bugs. My heart goes out to you. You have to love bugs or you break your garden. Unless you want to self-pollinate, don't use pesticides. Long term, it's terrible. When you go out and you treat your yard with herbicides, you are fighting nature. Look, actually, let me show you. I have a garden I've been working on. Look, it's pretty. I did eradicate huge amounts of the plants that were growing in my garden. Then I put down cardboard underneath the mulch, which is pretty boss. I have dandelions, which I can eat, but I never remember to pick them until after they're bitter, so I don't. But I can. And they feed the bees, which feed my plants, so I let them grow. Not in excess. I try to get a treatment occasionally. If I say rare, please realize this is once every few years. Or maybe twice, but every few years. I have clover. I have chamomile. I have all kinds of edible, wonderful plants growing out here. I have all of the things that would grow in a forest if I let it grow. I have dogs that help fertilize my ground. If you look out by the street, you can see my neighborhood. There's clover out there by the street. Clover is incredibly good for increasing nitrogen in the soil, and it's incredibly good for helping your grass to not need mowed. And this is just on my little corner of one neighborhood in the Midwest. Working with nature, oh my gosh, if my husband could just not mow and we could have this beautiful waving grass field every day, he would be on cloud 9. If I could just have chamomile and clover instead of grass, I'd be happy. But we're working with nature, even in this little, very tamed corner of it. When we go out into the woods, when we go out camping, we do our best to work with nature. I tell the kids all the time, if you go outside and a bug lands on you, be polite. We have our house. You're now in their house. Would you want to go in? Would you want someone to come into our house and poke us with a stick and smack us around? Teresa replied, yes, once a month in Michigan, and I push it to the limit and keep half my backyard untouched. Mwah, exactly. So when we're working with nature, it's more than just a statement. It's more than just an attitude. I was talking about something else before and I got sidetracked, and I'm not totally upset about that, but now I want to get back to it. Anybody remembers? That would be really cool. Preschool. So the thing about dealing with ignorance, when it comes to working in a Montessori preschool, if a kid says, he stole my project and he took over it and he grabbed my things, so I got so frustrated I threw it, the teachers in a Montessori environment, listen to these words, are taught to very pleasantly, perfect timing, thank you, my husband's plugging me in. Applause for my beautiful husband. He's the man behind the scenes for me. He is the wizard behind the curtain. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. So in this Montessori environment, if a kid takes their puzzle and throws it across the room, instead of saying, don't do that, go in timeout, you instead say, why did you do that? You're obviously very upset right now. I want to take care of your feelings. What can I do for you? Now, before you get kind of uncomfortable about this, because we're taught that's really not okay, hear the rest. Okay, so you are upset right now because your friend came in and pushed you out of the way so he could play with you, right? Okay. Did you not want him to play with you? Did you tell him you don't want him to play with you? Were you nice with him? Because you can ask your friend not to play with you. You know how often the response was, no, I can't do that. Think about it in your own life. When have you been given permission to just, I don't want to play with you. Like, I like you, but dude, not right now. Oh my gosh, my life was so empowered by this lesson. And I feel like there's so many things out there that we interact with most of the time that we don't really get how much we assume we have to acquiesce. We assume we have to acquiesce. We don't. We're allowed to say, no, thank you. We're allowed to say, pardon me, I was using this and I'd like to use it by myself, please. We are not allowed to say, give that here, leave me alone. It was my work. You stole it. How many adults need this lesson? How many adults not only need this lesson, but they need, my kid's riding by on her bike. How many kids need to be pleasantly reminded that they are allowed to say no? They're allowed to say, I don't want to kiss my aunt. They're allowed to say, thank you, but not right now. How many adults are taught that they can say, thank you, but not right now? How many women are taught that they can say, yes, I understand what you want. I'm not confused. Please leave me alone and have backup. Oh, thank you, Kate. It's so nice to see you. I'm sorry to see you go. And please, when you come back, feel free to comment more. I love comments. I'm loving this conversation with Teresa. I hope you all are. Sorry, I'm adjusting. My knee hurts. That too. So when, ooh, lots of boobs. Lots of boobs. Hey, everybody. I'm gonna recross my legs and adjust the angle. Goodness, I hope I get to come out and show you guys my melons. My melons in a few weeks. This is not a euphemism this time. Okay, so Teresa said, if we do it with love and not hate, just deliver your desire with unconditional love and keep out the anger and frustration, your intent is not as misrepresented. Walk and talk with loving, patient intention. Totally agreed. When I worked as a third shift server, yeah, you heard that, third shift server on a college campus, I got to discover all kinds of neat, interesting things. I had been challenged by my deity to wear my pentagram, actually much like I wear this buffalo tooth. Isn't that cool? Buffalo tooth. One of my students got it for me. I was really stoked about it. I still am. But I was challenged to wear my pentagram right here. Even in the t-shirt that we wore for work, that pentagram was visible all the time. And I was freaked out. Oh, get off your father's car. You know he's going to eat your head. My child. She's fabulous, but she likes to ignore rules if anyone's not going to enforce them. I know I'm on to you, child. It was scary. I was new at this whole paganism thing, but I had been raised evangelical, like I mentioned before. I went to a Methodist church and really, by the way, enjoyed it immensely. I was at one point baptized. I was a very happy born-again Christian. And then I started realizing some conflicts. I'm sure this sounds familiar to many of you. I was bisexual. I was comfortably bisexual. God had made me bisexual. Women are beautiful. Men are interesting. Women are interesting. But, men are fascinating puzzles to me. And I'm addicted to puzzles. So I kept dating men. No, women. Get stupid over women. I also turn into a 4th grader who can't talk to them, so I can't possibly date them because I just stare at them with these really wide eyes. It's kind of embarrassing. If you ever see me around a hot chick, you'll kind of watch me get real dumb. I'm greedy too. I don't know. I'm really happy with my husband. So when it came to me being a born-again Christian, I didn't think, of all things, that I should not be able to go to Rocky Horror Picture Show. Keep in mind, I was like 14. This made perfect sense in my mind at the time. But Rocky Horror Picture Show, I'd never seen it live. It was a major goal of mine. It was a community that celebrated beauty. It celebrated responsible fun, but lots of fun. And it didn't require clothes the way that other things do. You could have a good time. No harm, no foul. We all have said that enough times, right? In a religious context, no harm, no foul doesn't mean the same. Not in that kind of context. Not until 18. Yeah, and all I wanted was to be, and actually in Ohio, it was not until 16. You had to be 16 to get in. So I really, really, really wanted to go see it live. And if I was a really good born-again Christian, according to the community standards, nothing Jesus said had anything whatsoever directly to do with Rocky Horror Picture Show. Or a female ever being bisexual, by the way. In fact, I don't remember Jesus ever commenting on men being with anyone ever. He basically said, don't be a dick. I wasn't being a dick. Some of the music I was into. Hello, Carrie Leanne Martine. Welcome. Mwah. Some of the things that I would... My kiddo found a roly-poly. She's very excited. Some of the things that I wanted to explore in life, I wanted to go to a Nine Inch Nails concert. These are all... My first sex, I had a collection of sexy transvestites. I get all the sexy transvestites. You might be right. I might be greedy. The Guild has so many transsexual people in it, and I absolutely find that just gorgeous, just breathtaking. I'm very lucky. Sure, kind of. My daughter's kind of trans, and she responded with, what, like me? Kind of. She's 8, so, you know, she's baby trans. We'll see what happens. We're not making any decisions right now. But I adore the trans community, and we've ended up with, I want to say, about 25% of our community that falls into that general category, which is fascinating for me on so many levels. My comments just jumped. I'm not looking at the same place. Epigenetics doesn't store. Why did my comments just jump so I can't see current comments? I'm going to try commenting and see if that helps. Weird. I'm sorry. I'm having a really mild technical glitch, but I'm not seeing current comments right this second, and it's weirding me out. Trying to comment myself to force it to show up. If anybody has an idea of how to make it scroll when it's not scrolling, that would be really helpful right now. I'm also being bitten by a bug. Pardon me while I scramble. So anyway, I'm sitting in church one day, and I'm pondering the fact that... Oh, I used to. I used to all the time. My kid's like, you went to church? Well, now I run a church, but it meets once every month and a half for like 12 hours, and that's all we do. We don't do a weekly thing. Before, I used to go to church every Wednesday night, Juliet, and often Sunday nights as well. I also went to retreats with the church. I was in the youth group. I was very actively involved in my community, and I was very proud of my religious community. I was very proud of what it had done for me in my life. So when okay, now it says it's loading my comments, but it's not helping me see the current ones. I'm so sorry, guys. Having a hard time responding to you correctly with this. So I'm sitting in church, and I realized that in order to be a good Christian, I would have to leave part of me at the door. And Jesus, I'm praying, and I hear him. He's like, no, I didn't say that's what makes a good Christian. I said, I know, but I live in the real world. And there are people here who really feel that way. And I would walk around feeling like a failure constantly if I did that. He's like, that's a terrible way to live. I said, yeah. I said, you don't have to, because you can talk with me and you know what I have to say. I said, yeah, I know. But I think I would rather know that God loves me the way I am, know that God wants me the way I am, know that I am following a creed where I can live up to all of the expectations as well as all of the rules, instead of having to pick one or constantly feel like I'm failing. Why did I get onto this subject? So, when interacting with the divine as a non-pagan, as a baby Christian, I was having a very interesting time struggling with my own sense of definition until I made that call. Now, I still didn't know what I believed. I knew it had a name. I knew what it was. I knew the definition. I could tell people the definition. And oh my goodness, my grandparents are from Texas. My mom was from Texas. And so when someone came up to me and said, you should look up Wicca, I'm like, that's that Satan worship stuff, isn't it? They're like, what? No. I know, right? Please laugh. Please laugh. If you don't laugh, you'll cry. I was so freaked out. I ended up, my first book was called The Dark Arts. Of course it was. I ended up looking into all the dark stuff just to make sure what I was getting myself into. And it turns out that most of it, actually, I have gone into all kinds of lovely shadows, and I have people tell me all the time that I shine brighter than most of the people they know, because I'm not afraid of my shadows. I don't worry about the darkness in my world. I don't struggle against my gaps or my ignorance. I fix it. And ultimately, the goal is to help do that for other people in a pleasant, healthy, kind way, like what you were saying, Teresa, before, to be able to reach out to people and help have that conversation in a pleasant, kind way. The problem that we run into is when people have expectations that don't allow real life to work well, when they have expectations that we all kind of struggle with. It's hard. It's hard to explain to each other. And I just saw that a new comment got added, and I've got to figure out how to see this. Let's see if I can come up with any way. Ooh! Ooh! I think I'm getting it working. Oh, hey, look at that. Okay. Jessica Ritter joined. Welcome, Jessica. I finally caught up. Okay. So, Carrie said hi. Zach, hello, Mary Mead. It's nice to see you. Sean, about the same here in the Fort Wayne community, right? Teresa said, me too. I see the inner beauty months before I can remember someone's hair color. Yeah, I see people with their skin off is what I often say, and people are like, oh, I'm like, well, I do. Logan Cook says, comments. Thank you, Logan. I appreciate you. Carrie says, same. Adam Reed was laughing. Zach says, asking because I know someone who did via the latter, but I wanted to know which would be the better method. I need more information, Zach. I'm happy to discuss with you, but I'm not fully understanding the question. Too many pronouns, not enough nouns. And I will say, when it comes to dealing with confrontational situations where you have to confront someone using those same preschool techniques, working, that's what it was. When I was going through my early study sessions, I had dealt with a lot of inner conflict, obviously. Now that I've told that story, this is very clear. I've gone through a lot of inner conflict. I was very scared of my own pagan shadow. But the powers that be said, here's your pentagram, and by the way, that necklace you bought for it is going to break, and it's going to break, and it's going to break until you wear it right here. And you can't take it off. So I'm working around drunk people. You ever worked around drunk people with a clearly pagan symbol on you? Keep in mind, this was 20 years ago. So, and I was in Indiana. I was right next to Purdue. Yay, Purdue! At the time, I actually didn't want to go there because it was a very restrictive campus, in my opinion. Yes, opening the third eye benefits practicing the craft. It can also make you crazy. I'm going to go into more detail on that in a minute. And not literally, I'm sorry, I don't mean to dismiss anyone. Mental health is a very serious concern, but the same medicine that works as an antipsychotic also works to shut down your third eye. And also, so if you crack open your third eye and you know the Clockwork Orange, when they have the eyes, if you accidentally do that with Juliet, you're photobombing. It's adorable. No, you're wonderful. You're beautiful. Don't even worry. As long as you don't mind being on the interwebs, I don't care. If you do the Clockwork Orange approach, and a lot of people do that by accident, they're like, I'm going to do a magic spell, open my third eye and let me see. If you watched my energy there for a second, I did this huge like bubble and then I put it back. You don't actually want to finish that one most of the time, especially if you're brand new, because it's like getting a megaphone for your ear. Try this sometime. Too much sound, too much sight. Searching for it and looking too hard without understanding yourself and your abilities, it is confusion. It will come when it comes. And Teresa, while you're right that there is also one exception I'm going to calmly point out with people like me, actually, who grew up in a kind of restrictive environment where they're told you can't, you can't, you can't. A lot of times we'll end up wrapping ourselves up in these metaphysical chains. You have to find a way to remove them. Now, if you can do it with surgical precision, making yourself blind, yeah, you make yourself blind, and you then have to find a way to unblind yourself. There's not exactly a set script, and it's not like there can be either. I'm going to come back to this. I said I was going to, and then I didn't. I'm going to come back to this. When I was working thirds, I would interact with people, and at one point or another, I got a megaphone by accident, and yes, but if you can let it happen as it will, it is best. Yeah, Teresa, you're totally spot on with that. If you blast your energy open too soon, you won't have the ability to filter it. It's like when somebody has their hearing restored or their sight restored, she says so beautifully. Hi, Erin Zimmerman. You get too much feedback. Your body cannot process it. So if there's a way for you to just crack your eyes open and then open them a little bit more, and maybe do it in a dark room. Yeah, hearing 3 million languages at once. It's a lot like that. So when you do open your third eye, while it can help you, you want to do it well. You also want to confirm, and this is something I alluded to before, how you're perceiving, what you're perceiving. When I go out and work with cleaning up ghosts, and I do that fairly regularly. I just did some the other day that were so much like the soot sprites in the Miyazaki film, My Neighbor Totoro. They were so cute. I loved them. I didn't even want to remove them, but there were like 20 some of them, and it was not good in a new house. No, so they needed to be removed. They now live at our local park. They're very cute. I called them metaphysical squirrels. But when you go out into an environment where you're looking at removing spirits, it's a very similar thing to what we're talking about here. What you want to do is you want to go in with someone who won't just agree with you, first of all. You want to go in with someone who has different senses than you, or at least has a very different line, because a lot of times if you reverberate on too close of a wavelength, you'll just feed off of each other. I know, isn't it funny? Carrie wrote LOL. I told you it would be a conversation. I wasn't kidding. My daughter's bringing me lightning bugs because she's amazing. So all of the lightning. Okay, we're gonna look at the lightning bugs because that's what we do right now. See, isn't she gorgeous? I have the most beautiful baby who's also embarrassed, and that's okay. So yeah, Zach, if I go into this environment, I want someone who's not going to feed off of my perceptions, who's not just going to provide an echo chamber, who is going to work with me separately, because you need a second, not just 1.5. And you need to be willing to voice yourself, work together, and truly mesh your skills so that you're confirming. You're watching each other's back, because you can't see out of the back of your head. No matter how much we crack jokes, you'll never see this part of you or this part of you with your own eyes. You need another human there. And likewise, when you are dealing with, I know lightning bugs are the best. I'm so happy that they finally showed up and I get to go to Wisteria in a week and a half. Shout out for Wisteria, and all the lightning bugs are going to be out. Easily sidetracked. Shiny. When we are talking about getting someone new started, you want that same kind of feedback. You don't want the echo chamber, because all those 3 million languages at once. Yay, Sean, say hi to PSG for me. They're synchronous. I can't do both, so I haven't been trying, but send a shout out from me. Sorry, downside of meeting outside. No dogs barking, interesting drivers. So when you're trying to help somebody get started on their own 2 feet, you're trying to help them get their gifts opened up, you don't want to risk magnifying that. You don't want to have 3 million voices times 2. You do want to be able to fact check them. And it's really easy to get stuck in this spiral echo chamber when you first turn on, especially if you're with someone whose powers play off of yours. I'm going to say powers, it's applicable. I know it sounds all like X-Men and stuff, but if it works, if the shoe fits. When you're working with them, you need to be able to say, here is this thing. I'm thinking happy thoughts. I'm hungry right now. I carried a ghost in with me. Not recommended, but it happens. I have a metaphysical injury. I'm pretending. I need to not actually do that on purpose. You've got to give somebody an actual obstacle course to build up their skills if you want them to get good about using that third eye or using that new skill. And you need to be able to give them feedback in a controlled environment. Remember I said, or it can make you crazy, because it can. Don't turn on somebody's third eye and take them to the mall. I did that by accident. I didn't mean to. I didn't know I was doing it. Don't do that. No one's going to die, but they might be really uncomfortable. Don't get somebody really amped up from a spirit journey and take them to a big presentation at a school, especially around a whole bunch of excited kids. So when I say that you're giving them a controlled environment, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Don't light them on fire. Not surround them in a protective suit, but just don't light them on fire. Because these very simple things end up feeling like, well, and for those of us who have fallen down those stairs, I'm not actually exaggerating by much. It kind of sucks. Now, I was going to say, as far as dealing with people who are unpleasant, who are ignorant, who you're working with, Alex, dude, I love you so much. Hello. You can tell the people I know, and the people that I've met online know. I'm going to say hello to all of you because you all make my heart smile. But so don't hold it against me if the people I've hugged before I get giggly with. So when I was working thirds as a server and I was wearing my pentagram, people would come in and they would see my pentagram and they'd be trying to remember how many works and laughing about how they just knocked over their water and then spilled it when they got it refilled. And then, where's that menu again? Oh, I got it wet. Can you get me a dry one? Oh, yeah, you gave me a dry one. Thanks. You don't learn how to imitate this very well unless you've been there. And then they see my pentagram and they're like, oh my God, are you like a witch? I hear you guys burn babies. Is that right? I treated waitressing third shift the same way in my mind. I described it as taking care of a classroom of insane kindergartners. If you just, pardon me, if you just treat them like they're out of their minds, but they're all 4-year-olds, it actually works really well. So if they turned to me and said, nice boobs, I would say, oh, thanks. And I'd just walk away. So that's what you'd say to a crazy kindergartner. I know it is like taking care of toddlers. And if you treat them like they're flaming assholes, they will live up to that. But if you treat them like toddlers, oh, honey, did you spill water on your toes? Let me get you a fresh piece. No, you're fine. I'll dry off the counter. You just have to move out of the way and give me a second. Oh, thank you. I am pretty, aren't I? And no, I don't boil babies. Imagine if you went to your mom's church one Sunday and some little old lady, an old friend of yours from when you were a kid, walked up to you and said, oh, I heard you're pagan now. Do you boil babies? You know that innate reaction that we all felt in hearing that kind of situation? Switch. Just switch. Crazy kindergartners. People don't really comment to my face as Jessica, but rather to my coworkers or behind my back, and don't tip at least 20%. Well, there's ways to play with it. For instance, I stopped hiding the fact that I was a witch at all. I ended up, right, and then grin. I ended up embracing witch chic. If you look, I've got the witch chic going on. Oh, I have a collection of witches hats, including my daughter got me the cutest like mini witches hat. It just sits on the side of my head with little clips. There's a cat and a pumpkin on it. It's so cute. I wore my accoutrement, and if people ask me about my pentagrams, I'll tell them point blank, it's a symbol. It is a symbol that it symbolizes all of the cycles of life. It symbolizes the 5 basic elements of existence, and how they all work together in one complete whole within this constant cycle of life. And that this combination of pieces and parts, it symbolizes the whole universe, God's control over it, because, by the way, that point at the top there, a lot of us believe that symbolizes spirit being above all else, all things feeding up into it and helping to control all of the below. But it's a symbiotic system. It's not a bigger point than the others. It just happens to be on top. And if you rotate it, then you change which one's on top. So you recognize the fact that spirit is always in control, and it's always part of the whole, and it underlies everything. But then the circle around it symbolizes not death, not life, but the fact that everything, I mean, to quote Tool, life feeds on life, feeds on life, feeds on life. This is necessary. That doesn't mean it's evil. It doesn't mean it's bad. It means it's important. Oh my gosh, when I heard, if you guys haven't heard, what is it, the Holocaust of the Carrots, the Death of the Carrots, the March of the Carrots, something. An outward symbol of an inward belief. Our symbols are all different. They are, and how we embrace them changes too. So when I would meet people, instead of saying, here's what this symbol means for everyone, I would say, mine is one of many symbols, and it has this meaning for me, and you can look it up. It's been the same for a fairly long time now. And don't take my word for it. I got people to actually research. I got people to actually look into it, come back to me later because I worked at a restaurant, and say, you know, I looked into what you said, and I didn't expect you to be right, but you were. Jessica says, LOL, you've seen me. I don't hide, but I'm polite and do my job. It's just a lack of respect. People think you've got to agree with them if they're giving you money. A living wage for service workers because people don't tip anymore. Service workers are all struggling right now. There's a general community response to the service industry by definition that's implying they're worth less. Not worthless, but worth less. I feel you. I really think that people in general should be fighting more to have a $10 minimum job per hour. But frankly, a lot of those suck. And serving is fun. And when it pays well, it pays very well. And if people would just clean up their attitudes on this and stop being broke. Also, One of the things I learned by having my pentagram on all the time and having people come in drunk and stupid and feisty and argumentative was that I can crack a grin, crack a joke, make them laugh, and walk away. And then I can talk all about how they fucking drive me crazy while still smiling so nobody knows what I'm saying. Oh, by the way, I curse like a sailor. I apologize. Hopefully nobody minds. But no, when you get them to laugh, I will say that they tend to clean up their act a little bit. But you have to really know your timing and be willing to own it. Oh, you think I'm a witch? Well, you're right. Walk away. Leave that sitting there and listen to them like burst out laughing a minute later because they can't believe you said it out loud. You aren't allowed to draw attention to the man behind the curtain. What's wrong with you? Just fucking embrace it. It's funny when I tell people, yeah, I'm a pagan priestess, and I just make them deal with it. I don't pretend it's something to hide under my skirts. I treat it as something just casual and normal and force them to allow it to be. Not everybody likes that. It drives my mom crazy. But it's the only way to get by sometimes. We have 2 new comments. Teresa says, I created my own tarot card placement based on the circle, the pentagram, the 4 directions. Ooh. Jessica, lots of people have no idea service workers do not have to be paid minimum wage. I remind people when I go out, it's true. No one's enforcing it, ever. You're supposed to be paid up to minimum wage. Most places do not. They don't set aside taxes either, so you go broke at the end of the year. That's my new favorite. I owed $2,000 in taxes after a year of serving at Red Lobster. I'm going to call that one out by name too, by the way, because apparently they're specifically bad about that. And I don't work there anymore. It's not like they're going to be like. Zach says, my rule of thumb for tipping is $7 plus unless it's a huge ass order. In that case, I tip 17. Zach, you can come to Jessica's tables anytime and she will treat you like gold. In fact, everybody, Jess, if you tell us where you're working, those of us who can will come and visit you. Seriously. Because we're supposed to support each other. Remember, that's what we've been talking about, is community has to act like it. We have to reach out, not just admit that we need help, but then be willing to step up and say, oh, wait, I can do something to help this. I can step up. I can do something. And then do. Teresa says, not in Michigan. They have different minimum wages for waitresses, etc. Oh, no, I know. I'm sorry. The minimum wage they have to pay you is $2.13 plus tips. Federally, last I checked, it's been a minute, but last I checked, the $2.13 plus tips on a federal level has to total minimum wage for your state. And the federal minimum wage is not the same as minimum wage for your state, and it's not the same as, yeah. So the $2.13 plus tips is supposed to ultimately total, what is minimum wage now? $7-ish, depending on where you're at. Sorry, I'm getting eaten alive by bugs. You get to watch me like. So, but nobody looks down at your 30 hours a week and totals up your $300 in tips this week and $100 in tips next week and $50 in tips the week after that, and make sure to supplement your pay to make sure that all of those 30-hour weeks are paid up to $7 or whatever dollars minimum per hour. It just doesn't happen. It's not enforced. They're more likely to enforce cockroaches than pay. You have one cockroach anywhere in a restaurant, people freak out. You have all the servers being underpaid, nobody gives a damn. You would think that we would talk about it more, but you can't talk about money. You can't support each other by comparing notes. Like, I don't think we think about these things that we do so subtly. $7.25 on federal. I'm glad it's over $7 now. For a while there, it was like, what, $6.95? Teresa says, currently Michigan's restaurant owners are permitted to pay a tipped minimum wage of $3.10 per hour, provided the restaurant worker makes at least $8.15 per hour. And again, tell me the person who's enforcing that minimum. Adam Reed, plant some lavender in your garden. Thank you, Adam. It's so funny how often we forget that we can do these simple things. I've actually, knock on wood, been really good at having enough money, not a surplus, but enough money. I planted mint when I first moved in. I planted oregano when I first moved in. I now have basil growing in my garden. These are all supposed to help with multiple different levels of health. They help with establishing boundaries, removing pests, and money. And on a totally separate note that's really funny, a while back, my husband was talking about what's the difference between a pentagram and a pentacle? Now, before you answer that, it's funny, okay? He looks at me and says, wait, I'm Jewish. So if that's a pentacle when it's in the circle and it's on the, sorry, I'm mirrored, so I keep doing weird things. If that's a pentacle when it's in a circle and being worn, does that mean that I have a hexicle when I'm wearing my Star of David? He was born Jewish. He wears Star of David now and then. And I burst out laughing. I can't breathe for the next 5 minutes. I'm so sorry. I apologize at all of life. Lightning bug, sorry. I apologize at all of life for this. But when he said hexicle, what I heard was a witch's hex in the form of a popsicle. And I want to make these so bad. I want to sell these at street festivals. I want to sell them at summer festivals. I want to sell them all year round. I want to make hexicles that are potions, like what you were saying, Adam. Oh, lavender helps with them. Mosquitoes. Okay, that too. But I want to take the magical herbs that also have all of these medicinal traits and also just taste good. And I want to make spells that are popsicles. And I want to sell them at the Mosey's, because who wouldn't want to have a peach walnut basically smoothie turn into a popsicle that's enchanted to help with grounding? A cucumber mint basil popsicle to help with money income, or with income. That's the word I want. Fortune. Wouldn't that be amazing? I want to make these everywhere. I haven't gotten everything worked out as far as like we have to have a fancy kitchen, but the guild's going to work together, and we now have some of our popsicle containers, and we need to take an entire day to make a mess of somebody's whole kitchen to make tons of delicious. Wouldn't that be cool? So does lemongrass. I do have, I know, edible magic. Wasn't that in the great? I can't wait. Yeah, lemongrass and lavender. I would eat that actually in a heartbeat, because that's what we're talking about right now. But now we're talking about getting rid of bugs, and I'm like, I can make some bug spray, but I'm thinking about hexicles, and lemongrass and lavender might be tasty. Gonna eat my bug spray. That's the moral of this mini stories. I will eat my bug spray. Jessica had said, that's sweet. Thanks. I just quit or lost the places I was working. Oh, apparently I offend people. I never know how or why. They don't say it to my face. I want a place here where the alt queer minorities can congregate. They exist. They do. We got to compare notes. We do have a bunch of different jobs that we've been trying to get posted to the guild, places where people play together better with our kind, because that's a phrase that I like using ever. But I've managed to meet a lot of folks who actually aren't broke all the time, who have been able to establish that they have a really good work ethic and that they have good taste in humans, and they can recommend potential employees, and their employer will say, oh yeah, that's great, send them my way, I want to hire them. So, oh goodness, sorry, my video just played really heavy with that move. Teresa says, Jessica, it is so very hard to deal with the public at large right now because we are nearly unable to stop wanting to teach them in any way we can, and they're not ready. She's right. The world at large is not ready to learn higher thinking. I absolutely hands down disagree with that one statement out of everything you just said there. Jessica replies, so are we obligated to tell those customers that there's an associated spell? Because probably, but we'd sell more and do more good if people aren't completely aware. No, we call them hexicles. We clearly call each of the flavors what they are. So the grounding flavor would be, like I said, peach walnut. A lot of people, witch kitsch has become all the rage. We're fabulous, ladies and gents. Didn't you know? We're interesting and fun, and everybody wants to do it Saturday night. Don't worry, they'll regret it on Sunday. But I'm just embracing that. People like to play. And the ones who are really scared that eating one popsicle will infect them, they can walk on by. But most of the secular community, most of the younger community, will get a huge kick out of it. And they'll say, and this is my favorite part, they'll say, oh, it probably won't work, but it might. And they'll be willing to suspend their disbelief long enough to give the spell a fighting chance to have a real effect. Yeah, I would, well, the name's going to be hexicles, and I'm going to call them by what their purpose is, but they don't have to believe in it. They don't have to give it any value. And the fact that it's charged and correctly, what's the word I want? That the recipe is designed for this purpose. How many people do you know of who say, this smoothie is supposed to be really good for my digestion or my blood circulation or my food processing and my bowels, details no one needs to say out loud, or my blood, my heart issues. But I don't care because it's delicious. I want to eat it. That's the kind of stuff that we're talking about here. It's supposed to be good for. They can decide as much as they want to or not. Oh no, Teresa, I love you. Oh, I will tell them to suck all the popsicles. All the popsicles. Thank you for coming out today, Teresa. It was wonderful talking with you. Now other people have to talk with me. You guys had me for 15 or so minutes. I was going to provide 2 to 3 hours. I will not clock off before 10. I haven't eaten, so you have to make it worth my while to stay. Yeah, Jessica, the problem that I've noticed is that a lot of the modern world rewards sauciness. It rewards daring. It doesn't reward opinions, and it doesn't reward personal statements. You cannot make personal statements about people. But if you don't make personal statements, oh, a lightning bug just showed up in my background. If you don't make personal statements and instead you just get flippant and you have fun and you're saucy and you let yourself play, a lot of times people will reward you for that. Be like, oh, she's so unique. I did take off my pentagram. I did not hide the fact that I am interesting. But when I was serving at Red Lobster, like I mentioned before, I also, it wasn't about me. It was about the job I could do. And there is one interesting trap that drove me a little bit crazy. Men, I apologize. I'm going to make a comment about general mentality about men. Don't take it personally. It's not my personal view. Men in general do not maternal at people. They don't generally bend over backwards to go get all the things that somebody needs. As a gender category of our community, men are notorious for leaving their socks out, asking for another beer, and expecting you to open it with your boobs. And by the way, if anyone figures out how to do that, I will pay for that privilege. I want to learn all the tricks. But no, all joking aside, men have this expectation. Women, on the other hand, are fully expected to be able to carry a purse, a bassinet, a bag of shopping, a dirty diaper, and a baby who's, of course, not in the bassinet, simultaneously while balancing a pitcher on their head. And if they can't, tips tend to follow the ability for someone to exceed the expectations they're being presented with. I am not saying, 1, that I agree. I'm not saying, 2, that it's okay. And 3, it really sucked for me when I was working a table right next to a guy where they asked for butter. It took me a minute, but I got it. They said, what took you so long? I had to go back to the kitchen, ask for it. It had to be served up by someone behind the counter. The guy at the table opposite me asked for butter, gets it within the same period of time. And they're like, oh, thank you. That was so fast. The expectations are different. Now, men, when they're mediocre, make nothing. Women, when they're mediocre, make something. Women, when they're exceptional, they make enough. Men, when they're exceptional, bank. They would make twice as much as me per shift for the exact same work. I was not perfect, but neither were they. That's all I'm saying. Adam had said, I don't hide anymore. I sit on my balcony in an apartment complex and craft, burn incense candles, and carve stone wood. Mwah! Thank you for that. Obviously, I'm sitting in front of my house talking loudly to a laptop. So I'm kind of with you on that. Jessica says, I agree. I feel like that's what I do. I used to not do that when I was younger at my first job. I feel like just based on my appearance, people decide that they aren't going to talk to me or tip me. Just go to a different place. Seriously, if you go to a place that's got more of the avant-garde look, the customers are going to come in expecting that. If you go to a place where everyone looks the same and acts the same and wants the same, then you're going to be treated like that punk chick. We all know how she's treated. She's only good for something, and we all know what it is, but it's not relevant if she's filling your beer. Not everybody's like that, obviously. But it's a matter of finding the right location. And I don't think you should have to sacrifice your amazing blue and purple locks, which I am in lust with. I love your hair so much. Like, I lust over your hair. I'm not meaning to, like, be weird. Sorry. Oh, there is a lightning bug on the screen. That was fun. She was crawling on my face on the screen. Exactly. That's why I want to own and run my own place. Yeah, and there's places like the Spot Tavern and some of the other places locally. Right, Adam, I definitely break the expectations, he says. I'm a stay-at-home dad. Yeah. And my husband and I have very comically classic roles in the house, just backwards. He will go and kiss all of the boo-boos. He will run from downstairs in the house, and if you're ever over here, it is so cute to watch. The kids will stumble in their bedroom and go, ah! And he will run from the basement up the stairs, around the house, down the hall, and say, are you okay? I come in saying, hey, is there blood? You okay? Like we were talking about in the preschool Montessori part of this conversation earlier, I say, hey, why did you do that? Did this person upset you? Is there something that was going wrong? Like, I can't fix you, but what's going on? We end up having a very simple conversation. Aaron goes in and says, oh, are you dying? And they're like, I'm dying. And he's like, oh, can I kiss it? And they say, yes. And he gets them their drinks and he gets them their food. And of twins, oh my God, Adam, you have officially leveled up. You get deity status. You are fucking amazing. You outrank all the bitches. Sorry, I cursed too much. But no, seriously, I kept being so sure that I was going to have twins. They run on my dad's side of the family. I had this feeling. I ended up with 2-year twins. They're a little bit apart. Why do I keep saying angry faces? Am I making people angry? I hope I'm not angering people. I love you guys. But yeah, my husband and I have hilariously reversed roles, but they're not reversed. They're perfect. They're exactly the way they should be. And what was funny was being around my family, they expected me to go cook in the kitchen, to go play with the kids, to change all of the diapers without question, to know where all of their socks were. And when I didn't, they thought I was like hoisting that onto Aaron. There was this very clear language gap between us for a while there. Not between Aaron and me, but it did take Aaron and me putting it in so many words that he was the mama hen and I'm the papa bear. And I wear pretty dresses and makeup, and he looks very much like a beautiful man, and we're still reverse roles around the house. I am head of household legally, and he lets me take care of all of the finances, his, mine, and all of it, because I do it right. He doesn't. It's okay. He takes care of some of the household lovey stuff that I just never learned. It works. So yeah, I had to deal with not meeting people's expectations for a while there, and it was awkward and uncomfortable, and it was funny. Okay, here's the point where it got better. And Jessica, when it comes to breaking people's expectations, this is an idea, just an example of how to finally kick it over into a point where they'll accept it. We kept trying to tell my family that he was the mama hen. They're like, sure, you just don't do your job, Beth. Implied, sometimes stated. It was ugly, actually. It was very offensive to me. And then my sister's son was going to stay home without her, and I said, let Aaron help. They said, Aaron's like, no, really, let me help. I'm happy to. Right, exactly. I cook, clean, and kids while she takes care of Bill's job and money. It works for our dynamic. Precisely. So Aaron walks over and says, I'm happy to help. They're like, ha, you're a guy. We're theoretically a really open-minded, accepting family, just not, I guess, within the family. Oh. They said, no, honey, you're a guy. Thanks for helping, or thanks for playing, but baby starts crying. My stepmom frustrated. My sister's rolling their eyes because he doesn't like being away from mom. I said, give him to Aaron. Let him poppy walk the baby. Poppy walking is a reference to my husband's incredible grandpa, Poppy, who loved babies and would hold them and put them on his chest and just bounce. Yeah, that does terrible things for the screen. I apologize to all of you. But babies love it. And Aaron will sing and hum and have little conversations with them. And they walked in and they sat down with me and said, haha, Aaron's with the baby. We'll wait until it pees or something. A few minutes later, they said, fuck, what happened to the baby? Is he okay? Like, is he alive? Like, should we go check? And when we go back, of course, Aaron's just bouncing the baby around in a dark room and telling him mommy will be home soon and telling him about ducks and how stars work and singing sweet little songs. And the baby's not asleep. He's just happy. Because my husband is a baby whisperer. And he's amazing. And we allow each other to celebrate our strengths. And no one ever questioned it again. Jessica says, I'm the driver. I have to because I feel like I have to keep everyone safe. And the jokes about women not being good drivers pisses me off. But I'll keep driving and parallel parking like a boss. Dude, you should try, if you're such a good driver, there's all of those cool cab services that have words. I have names and things that you can sign up for. God, I'm useless. I know 2 or 3 people who are driving for different online cab company things, and I'm Uber. I got a word. It was coming out Hulu. Because you should drive television programming. I switch up words sometimes. It's funny. So yeah, you should try Uber, not Hulu, and see if you could rock that out. And I know 2 people here in town where if they recommend you and you work so much, I don't know how much, then you get a bonus if they've recommended you and you work past this invisible point. I can put you in touch. I know 1, 2, 3. What's really funny is even when I'm broke, I don't drive Uber. Oh, I'm going to throw an idea at you guys and see what you think. I have been pondering the Guild. The Guild of the Gods is here local in Lafayette. I'm going to give a brief intro for those who don't necessarily know. The Guild of the Gods is built as a community for solitary practitioners. Years and years and years ago, we had the highest pagan population per capita in the U.S., but nobody knew because we are all solitary practitioners. We don't agree. We shouldn't have to. But we had so many of us, and we wanted to be, able to find community without having to put on exactly the same clothes and say the same things. Hi, Melissa. I'm talking about the guild right now and where it came from and some of the plans I have for in the future, because it's not me standing on my own 2 feet. Actually, most of the guild's existence is based on that phrase. It's not me standing on my own 2 feet. It's all of us making each other stronger, building a community where we back each other's play, we help each other find jobs, we help each other get better, and we fully expect each other to hold ourselves accountable with feedback, with presence, and pleasance. I like to use those words together. The guild didn't happen overnight. I had already been working with a Purdue group, and then everyone who was working with me kind of graduated, and a lot of them didn't leave because Lafayette's kind of like that. I hear a lot of college towns are, but Lafayette's really remarkable in that regard. We ended up still working together over time and having a pretty good time of it. I would work on specifically the wheel of the year. I wouldn't do all of the full moons, all the new moons. It's too much. I love you all. I want to see you more. I have to make a living. I have to have time to spare. The planning and organization would make me crazy. So I made sure to set my own boundaries early on. You get me for 6 to 12 hours a day, even for a whole weekend festival, but only once every month and a half because I can't do more. Now I'm working with the guild. We have treasurers, we have secretaries, we have people working together. So we can do more. It's very exciting. But I don't want anyone to pay for their religion. I don't want anyone to pay for their community. Now, we do have a membership system now where that paid for a Beltane event, which was free with all meals included. In the future, I might treat that as a nominal fundraiser, so we at least get some of our money back. But if we're providing 3 hots a day and all of the campsite, I think charging a nominal amount's not crazy. And I'm saying this because I welcome feedback throughout the year if anyone has opinions. And that's a big thing about the guild. We discuss. I don't make decisions. I throw them past people and I pay attention to what the consensus is and I work with that. In fact, when we put together our nonprofit status, one of the things I made sure to type up is, what is consensus? How do we achieve it? How do we know that it's true? It's a big deal because you need someone to steer the ship, but you need to have a concise way to know that you're going in the right direction. So we put that in so many words. So now I'm going to tell you guys that I'm looking for a consensus on a general subject. I'm going to talk it over with y'all, get your feedback if you're interested. In supporting the guild, we need to have $500 in the bank just to pay for our federal nonprofit status. We had a death in our guild family, and what little we had in the bank after Beltane actually went towards memorial expenses. And in theory, we've got money in there now to be able to go towards rescue funds, but I have to sit down with the treasurer at some point soon and work out the details on that. But $500 sitting in the bank, it's not something most pagan groups have. And then you factor in the idea that we'd like to have our own place. We'd love to have a trailer that we can bring wherever we need to go. We'd like to be able to support all of the different rituals throughout the year and actually pay our clergy. Forgive me, but I'd like to be able to afford to give this my full focus, and I can't right now. I'm getting published. I'm getting published! So that'll help. And I have a lot that I'm looking at producing over the next few years, and that will help. And we have a lot of things falling into place. But I still don't like making people pay for their practice. Jessica, you're talking about looking for a job, and one of the things that I realized is that a big part of the study sessions I do with people is teaching them life skills and teaching them how to embrace the skills they have, teaching them energy healing, psychism, readings, energy work, exorcisms. And suddenly, the other day, my family, my little family right here, for Mother's Day, they got me a mani-pedi and a massage, and I died. So excited. While I was there, I had a sudden realization that in the very old days, back in the old days, 1800s, no, try 1800 BCE, in Mesopotamia, they would have ziggurat temple complexes where the temple complex would teach people life skills. It would teach them a way to support themselves. It would teach them energy work, healing. At least one of the temples was devoted to a goddess of pleasure. That was a different life skill that we're not going to touch with a 10-foot pole. And then the people who learned their skills, hi Sean, again. The people who learned their skills through the ziggurat would be able to become part of the general community and make money off of what they'd learned. But 1 to 2 days a month, they'd go in and offer their skills as a donation through the temple. And for those days, if people wanted to come into the temple and get the work of a carpenter or a massage or a floral arrangement, they could get it from the temple, and all of the proceeds would benefit the temple as part of their repayment, their thanks, their gratitude for having been taught. I really like that idea. And I actually really like the idea of being able to split it 50-50 with the people who are doing that work. Being able to have what I'm mentally thinking of as service days inside of the guild, where for these service days, we set up a sign-up sheet ahead of time for people to offer their skills. And then we set up a sign-up sheet for people to patronize those skills for a set rate. Can't set a set rate, apologies. Recommended donation. A recommended donation. And those who are good at watching kids can help watch kids as part of this. Can you imagine if you could just get a guild babysitter for a couple of hours on a Saturday and go spend time with your family? Oh, and we all know each other. Yeah. I'm Adam. I'm happy to talk over ideas with you because it's hard. It's hard to figure out a way to do it in an ethical, community conscious, positive way where I don't feel like I'm shaking people down. And I'm sorry. Every time I was in church and they'd pass the plates, I always felt like it was a kind of shakedown. I don't like that. But I don't ever want people to, even like at a potluck, I tell people, I'd rather have you than not. You don't have to bring something along. You do need your community. Come and play. Jessica says, I do own a small business. I'm a documentary photographer, and I have so many ideas for this community. I do want to learn more with my magic and offer skills. Serving is a way for me to meet people and some extra income. I really would like a nightclub for the alt community. I'd be down for babysitting every other weekend sometimes. And see, the guild needs babysitters on call. In fact, I need to put together a list of skills offered. We have a couple of dog sitters, and then when we need dog sitters, we just space. We need to have a list of different services that people offer as just a page that we have available. We have a few Reiki healers. Alex Stute, who was on earlier, I think is one of our Reiki healers. Chris, who's not living in town right now, is a life skills coach. Did I say that right? Life skills coach, I think. And also a certified nurse and a Reiki practitioner. I actually do energy healing, but it's not specifically Reiki. Some people like it far better. Some people are like, that's not what I was expecting. So I like to work with people. I read the bones, and I do study sessions, and I need to get better about actually putting together paid sessions at some point. But the guild needs to get a little bit better on its feet. I've agreed that this year especially we're not going to fight for anyone to get paid, and then next year we'll talk about it. So I'd like the guild to start supporting its community more actively by, if nothing else, giving us a chance. You know, all those people who say, support Christian business, support pagan business, rock it out. Robert Noah Pack, your timing is perfect. We were just talking about supporting your pagan business, and this man here is a heck of a repairman. And actually, I need your help, Robert, fixing our, that thing, hose connection. The twisty knobble came off. That's the official name for it, the twisty knobble. Thank you, Adam. I am excited. I would love to get your contact information. Just know that I work the equivalent of like 2 full-time jobs and a half. And I have 3 kids and a house I try to manage, and an art show I need to prepare for. That's the first weekend in August. And so, like, know that I value your contact. I value your input, even if I'm really bad about getting a hold of you right away. So feel free to hit me up directly, because I just got that publishing contract too. Chris is open for several ideas too. He's developing his tarot skills, plays music, hacks computers, picks locks. Ooh. So we have a village locksmith. I'm all about it. I would personally prefer we know whose locks are getting picked. I'm going to throw that out there once. So yeah, I want to help support each other inside of our community, and I want to do it in a way that is beneficial to everybody. So if someone's too busy to be able to keep up with their workload, we should be honest about that and whatnot, and just understanding. With the TRP group in Fort Wayne, we try to keep things free as much as possible. We have a wonderful couple that open their home for most of our meetings, but there are some here and there that there is a fee for supplies. Last year and this year, we did our own mini festival called Weekend in the Woods. I think it was like $80 for the weekend this year for Thursday to Sunday, and included a band, food for the weekend, and cabins. I love that so much. Robert, you're the best. And I highly recommend Robert as just a general handyman. He's been our guild handyman. We recommend him all throughout the guild, and I hope we keep you kind of busy and paid. not just helping, but actually paid. Sorry. I have beautiful moths that love my screen right now. LOL, yes, village locksmith, we do no harm. Okay. That's all I need to hear. Oh, and I haven't been liking anyone's comments. I'm so bad. Hey, I'm going to like all your comments when we're done. I'm going to go through and like. I'm not really. But next time. Actually, this was my first time doing this. What do you guys think? Do you like it? Thoughts? Comments? I think it's cool. I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about where we were at in the ongoing study sessions and where we're going to with the study sessions over this coming week, because these Monday night meetings are going to be aimed towards that. First off, I do have a read-along that I'm doing right now. The first book I picked out is The Celestine Prophecy. People do not have to read it, but not this Wednesday, but the Wednesday after I have a meeting, but I'm going to work around it. I want to put together a central comment board where everyone can type together. And if I need to go live to address it, we can do that, I guess. But I'm picturing more that everyone's going to type up their conversations. Thank you, Adam. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you, Jessica. And I want to work with you guys in this format. I also want to work with you as far as the book studies are concerned. I find that reading other people's experiences, other people's words, other people's research is incredibly valuable for a handful of reasons. One, they are not always right. You have to figure out how you feel about what they're saying. In general, in the whole world, Not just now, not just this, but always. Whether it's your mother, your child, the stranger off the street, the lady in the church that I mentioned before, you need to find how you handle your, oh, thank you, Zach. You need to figure out how you handle your own perception of this world and how you want to process it. There's no obligation. No one's ever going to force you. Hear this. No one will ever force you to agree with them. They can't. No one will ever force you to disagree with them, even if it's right. They can't. You can sit there and passively experience the world being screwed up your whole life, and it won't stop just because it's wrong or crazy or, well, screwed up. So when it comes to the books I provide you guys with, something that I do on purpose that I think is incredibly important, I include bad books. You've got to find a way, especially in the modern New Age environment. There are some hacks out there. I can give you all of the tools to figure out how to sort through them. At this point, I'm just itchy on principle, pardon me. I can give you the tools for how to draw your own conclusions, how to research them, how to really get a good impression for yourself. I'm not going to force you to agree with me, and I don't want you to. Instead, I want you to really figure out how you feel, what you think, what you like, what you don't. And when we think something's really funny or really strange, we can just laugh it off. When we disagree, we don't have to fight. We can just be like, oh yeah, cool. I find it interesting that you disagree with me because that allows me to learn something that's not otherwise in my shtick. Valuable, worthwhile. 2, not all stories are interesting. I try to stick with the interesting ones. I do. You have your interest. You have your life path. And I have found that even the most interesting book in the world, it might not be the right time for you to read it. So when we do these book readings together, for those of us who pick up a book and just, no, put it down. Don't finish it. Don't worry about it. In fact, even if you don't, especially if you don't, maybe go to the conversation about it afterwards so you can learn other people's impressions of it. Like when you're in class in high school and, oh my God, how many times I got to hear about Of Mice and Men. I never need to read that because I heard 50 different book reports about it in 6 years. I wish I weren't exaggerating. Not. So having a whole bunch of us commenting on the Celestine Prophecy on Wednesday, I believe it's the 27th. I can pull up the calendar. Yes, Wednesday the 27th. So it's not next week. That's when I'm in Wisteria. Seriously, I'm such a nerd over this. So it's the week after next. 27th is when we're going to try and have that done, and we're just going to sit down and talk through what appealed to us and what didn't. Please do not feel that it needs to be an echo chamber. I don't want that. I don't want that at all. I think this was awesome. I think that sucked. There's a lot of interesting comments on the Celestine Prophecy's veracity, its literary qualities, and actually we're going to stumble into point 3. Fact. Anytime you do a book that is nonfiction, you must support it. You must provide supporting documentation. Now, there's certain websites, videos, and books out there that don't have stringent academic requirements, and it's disappointing, but it's fact. When it comes to you and me picking up any book, please keep in mind that a factual book has to include all of its supporting documentation. A nonfiction or a fiction book can sometimes get a lot closer to the truth because it's not all tied up in whether or not they're quoting that reference correctly. It's not all tied up in whether it's provable. It can capture psychological realities, emotional truths with a depth that very few. You should always try to finish a book because what if you miss something that explains the bullshit? Yes, But this is something that I did when I was in my personal studies. I'd have 6 books I'm trying to get through, and I'd spend so much time trying to get through that one that the other 5 I'd never read. Think about it. Almost all of us do this. We don't, so busy trying to finish that one. Read through all the chapter headings. Skim through the chapters. When you see the curse words and you see the weird random things that jump out at you, read that section. Attacking Caterpillar, what? That's from the Getting Stoned with Savages, which is a really great book, by the way. There's a 3-foot-long caterpillar that attacks the dog and the homeowner. It is the funniest story, mini story, in a book. The author's fantastic too. J. Martin Troost, Troost. The Sex Lives of Cannibals is his first book, and I listened to it as a book on tape and couldn't breathe. And there's certain universal truths that fall into his books too, and they're funny. There's a long list I posted before, hashtag reading list on the Guild. I haven't put together all of the nonfiction books yet, but the fiction list and the fiction-ish, the kind of memoirs and stuff are on there. Last but not least, when we do the readings, I want people to play with it. Don't tie it to your ankle and drag it around like a, ball and chain. Enjoy it. Integrate it. All of those instructions in each chapter, it took me years to realize that those were just slowing me down when I tried to do those afterwards. I would read what the instructions were. I would wrap my head around what the instructions were. Flip the page and keep reading, because that's what I want to do right now. Later on, if I wanted to do some of those workshop type things that they included, I'd come back to them. I'd play with them. Remember? Play with them. If you make it work, it will feel like work. It'll be that thing, that onus, that burden that you carry. In my opinion, religious and spiritual study should never, ever have to be that. It's part of the reason why you guys are enjoying this conversation, because we have fun. We cover the important stuff along with everything else. This coming week, I'm going to be talking about a lot of the push and pull of energy. The Celestine prophecy parallels this and provides a really solid context. I like that myself. I will be going through the context, the day-to-day application, the realistic perception of some of the stuff we hinted at last week. I asked last week, what do you believe foundationally? What is real to you? What is moral to you? What is God? What is religion? What is your day-to-day practice? Now let me take a minute, for those who are still with me, to go ahead and explain something kind of fun. Religion, as I was talking about earlier with Ostara, for those of you who are still with me on that, religion, we like to say it happens in a church. We like to say that it's something that we do on purpose. It's intentional, but a lot of it is actually what we do when we can. It's what we try to do and fail, and what we end up doing because we finally succeeded. Religion is a lot less intentional than we say it is. It's what we have in the kitchen when we try to do the spell. It's the time that we have to meditate or say the prayers. And I can't count how many parents I've talked to who say, oh, I mean to pray daily, or I mean to meditate daily, or I mean to commune with my gods daily, light a candle for them. And instead, when I'm in the shower, I'm like, oh, hey, Mom, Papa, hey, Hera, Coyote, hi, long time no see. I miss you. I love you. What's that, kiddos? Conversation complete. A lot of religion throughout history has been that. And the reality, the modern reality, is that we are actually easily twice as busy as most humans have been in history. Now, the question is, how do we qualify busy? Because right now, technically, we're all busy having this session. We're sitting around, staring at our computers, fiddling around with things, having a good time in its own way. But we're busy. When we talk about religion now, it's what fits around that schedule. Let's be honest. It's what we're able to do. Most of us have this idealism, and we can't help it. We're groomed for it. And it's kind of like what you were saying. You should always try to finish a book. You should always try to. But if it's torturing you, you have to give yourself permission to finally admit a certain amount of just, my life is give and take. It isn't as applicable until you have 2 or 3 kids or 4 or pets or multiple jobs or something. And you have to start choosing what you're putting down. I can choose not to do my laundry for a week like I did last week. You all know what the rest of that thought is, don't you? Oh, yeah, you know. I can choose not to do the rest of my laundry for a week, but I have to do it later. Religion doesn't force us. That's one of the gifts of the gods. You don't have to pay attention to your gods. And that is your ability as a human being. That's part of what the words free will mean. You should. You can. But so what? When you have no time and room in your schedule, that's one of the first things to slide. A lot of people say, as in national polls and details I've read, that I don't remember what the stats were. And right now I don't care. But we all know that this is a general fact in all of our worlds. And we also know that if we don't have enough time for everything, having something that politely steps out of the way and says, no, by all means, take care of yourself, that's a big deal. When I ask you to consider your religion, I ask you to consider it in that context. When you talk about your beliefs, your morality, your gifts, you can say that I think in a perfect environment I can sense ghosts. But when you go to the grocery store and you drive past that graveyard, do you see the ghosts out standing there? Yeah, I'm with you, Zach. He says, my opinion is that religion is best when not organized. It keeps it more about faith than anything else. And I think that a lot of that is true, that it should fit into your daily rhythm. But I also call my own practice walking in rhythm. I think it's incredibly important to be honest with yourself about what your life needs for both the give and the take. And remember that part of your life is you have to take. You have to have a full belly. You have to have rest. You have to have comfort. A lot of us have learned over the years that the gods are hungry gods, that our jobs are hungry gods, often more than our gods are, that our families have needs. How many of us are taught to take care of our needs? How many of us are given permission to? I opened a couple hours ago now by saying that as a priestess, one of my main jobs is to give people permission. So let me tell you right now that in your day-to-day life, in my day-to-day life, we need permission to let our life fit our needs. I hate this job. It makes me miserable. Okay, go get another one. But then I might have to leave earlier than I was going to, and I'll really screw over my boss. Your boss doesn't pay you enough to actually keep bending over backwards. Yeah, but he doesn't pay me enough because he can't afford to. And he can't afford to keep you. Go somewhere where people will take care of you. The whole point of a job is they pay you in exchange for your work and your work with them. We all know this, but we I don't know what the right word is. It's just, it doesn't quite make sense what we go through each day. What we're willing to bend over backwards and accept and just keep trying so hard to impress the world around us, to give us permission to finally be happy. Be happy. Right now. Go run a hot bath with some salts. Go get out the chocolate cookies. You guys read Practical Magic? Eat brownies for breakfast. Life is here meant to be lived. I promise you, you will not get a do-over. Today, it's done. It's time to go cuddle and rest. What are you going to do tomorrow, though? What are you going to do tomorrow to make it unique, to make it fit your needs, to make it help you be happy? Finding time is hard. Every day it's hard to do something every day, but I do so to do weekly. I think I followed you, Adam. Yeah, but what I'm saying right now isn't quite that. I'm saying revamp the structure. Relax. Look at what the world gives you that gets in your way and what the world gives you that enables you. Focus on encouraging the enabling. Take away the things that get in your way. If there's always a traffic jam at that one intersection, drive around it. Okay, you go 1.5 miles, even 3 miles out of your way. You don't spend 20 minutes in bumper-to-bumper traffic with your... And Jessica says, Jenny Atkinson, remember Practical Magic? Ha, all of what she's saying about the job, it's us right now. Yeah, you know. And you're not alone. You're not. We're all in this with you. We're all taught to suck it. I mean, not to put too fine a point on it. But we're all taught that we have to just accept the fact that life sucks. Walking in. Now, I do have 3 rules of existence. That is rule number 1. But you know why? Because you will never be disappointed. If you assume walking in that life sucks, either you're right or you're wrong, but your expectations won't be set so high that you're unpleasant to be around or you're crushed. Crushed was what I said there, sorry. Rule number 2, though, is it'll all be okay in the morning. You just don't know which morning. Everything happens for a reason. Now, there's these other rules, though, that I wrote them all down and then lost it. You can't passively live through life and expect it to benefit you. You can't hear a silent drum. You have to take part in your life because I assure you, life will not make you participate. It will let you sit there and go to seed. And it'll just be like, oh, she wasn't in it. He didn't need to. They obviously have no investment in this, right? The road will keep going and you won't. And it's no offense. And I have something in my eye, sorry. It's no offense. You don't inherently suck, but the world will not force you to do better. Oh my gosh, I think I have a bug in my eye. If I have a bug in my eye, you'll have to go, ah, no. Also, nothing truly of worth happens without struggle. Nothing. But you can let it just hurt you. You can lay there and just get bruised and broken. Or you can embrace the struggle and choose to learn from it. No one will force you to. But if you choose to see a lesson, if you choose to let yourself grow and say, oh, yeah, this is why this happened, so now I can figure out how to never let it happen again. Jenny is my sister. I had no idea she'd watch this. She's passionate about children in the system and had been working with our hometown school. Oh, that's wonderful. And see, most of what I discussed, like I was talking about earlier with Teresa when she was on, I'm just stating the obvious. I'm not saying anything that's exceptional. And I mean, the funny thing is that it's pagan, as in it means belonging to the earth. It means the genitive, the possessive form of earth. It doesn't mean it's a unique religious trait. It's kind of universal spiritual values. Anyone can apply these. Nobody has to, like I said before, no one has to agree with me in order to be able to see the value in a lot of what I'm saying. And even in areas where some of the things I said throughout this evening might not fit one person or another person, and I hope I didn't alienate anyone or make anyone uncomfortable, But where we disagree, if anything, I'd like to hear your point of view, because maybe I'm the one who's in need of information. Maybe you're the one who's the secret keeper in this case. I've never worked with a student where I didn't learn so much from the interaction. Luna, hello. It's so nice to see you. I was going to wrap up because I was talking about feeding ourselves and making sure that our spirits are strong and our bodies are fed and our life suits our needs. And here I made dinner and it got done right as I started, and I did not, you'll notice, sit and eat, because that would be weird. I don't want to watch myself eat, so I'm not going to make you guys do it. Hello, Luna. It's so nice to see you. Do we have any comments, any questions? The one that I ran into recently on the guild was very kind of deep, and I'm not sure I want to get into that. It was a question of how much karma does or does not punish people for, I believe the word is punishing, we'll say punishing, child molesters and rapists that typically slip through the system. Loaded question. I would not want anyone I love to ever be harmed by the human system just because they're doing something they spiritually think is right. That is my answer. So that's kind of a short little interlude if anyone has comments. Next time we could make it a virtual dinner date. Who all wants to eat? We could compare notes on what we're eating. Make sure it's really interesting. Have somebody eat mealworms or something. Not me. But no, are there any questions, any specific issues that have come up? Oh, I see an angry face again. Please let there not be an angry face. I don't want people to be angry. Let's leave off on a positive note, because we've had a few of those. So I'm going to leave off on one, and then, oh, Luna says, I will go back and watch. Just got kiddos to bed. The rest just came in. Oh, I hear you. I do. I live that life. And actually, I need to go live that life. So as a last very positive note, we were talking about reaching out into the community to help make it stronger. We were talking about trying to reach out to people who bring negativity, who surround us with negativity, with positive responses. Oh, no, Jessica, I keep seeing your laughing faces, and then I get this, like, I don't know how to describe it. I get a confetti of a flower, a wow, an angry face, a smile. I think it's just everything popping up, but it always makes me a little unnerved. Thank you, Luna. I hope you like it. I did see the laughing face, too. And I'm glad I've gotten to make everybody smile and have fun with this. And that's actually where I'm going with this next comment. Over the next few days, when you feel gross, bring light into the world around you. Oh, yeah, no, I know. They are weird. But bring the joy. Sometimes the reason you're identifying that this is a really shitty situation right now is because you can be the solution. But remember, I said life is not going to make you. A beautiful and screwed up thing about magic is that you can have all of the ability in the world and the universe will not make you use it. You can have all of the ability to prayer and affect things around you. You can have an incredible singing voice, amazing artistic skills. And if you don't, like, Jessica, are you a member of TAF, the Tippecanoe Arts Federation? They're here local in town. They support artists. It's a $30 admission, and they will help you get jobs that are paid gigs. And The World Is Your Mirror, Zach. Beautiful, by Elliot, how do you say that? Hulse? Enable your life by enabling others. Reach out. Work together. And if you do see someone who needs help and you're like, ugh, anybody could help them, hear that. Stop, hold the door, Help them pick up the groceries that just fell. Help. Oh my gosh, I love playing the auntie card in the grocery store, the stranger auntie, because what's really funny is even if the kids are like, oh dude, mom, it's strangers talking to me, you know what happens? They stop screaming at their mom. They stop yelling about the candy bar. They get super shy and self-conscious and go, oh, people can see me right now. So if you see a screaming kid, laugh. Oh, dummy. Yeah, Jessica, I'm sorry. I get no gold stars. None. I fail at life. I'll do something to help you on that, though. Teamwork does make the dream work. And if we can start putting together pagan community outreach websites, links, listings for people, we should do it. Not that you can see my thumb. Again, I'm mirrored. Hey, now you can see. Okay, y'all. You make my heart smile. I have a lovely poem I wrote once upon a time. And I'm not going to... Do I have it open? I might have it open. Let you guys get to see it. I'll read it to you. I have it open right now. I was lonely, and you were there for me. I wanted to learn, and you answered my questions, sharing your own answers. I needed help, and you dropped everything, asked no questions, and assisted me. I needed love, and you loved me unconditionally. I was bored, and you brought me excitement. I was hopeless, and you helped me to look up and see possibilities. I was without direction, and you helped me to find it on my own terms. I was stuck, and you pushed me. I am joyous, and you are why. I needed community. I just didn't know that this could be the definition. Thank you for being my community. Let's keep paying this forward and making this happen, okay? Deal? If I get like 600 deals posted at the end, I will just light up. I'm telling you now. All right, y'all. I'm out. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for coming out to play with me, and I will see you next Monday for more chats.